You think it's discipline. You think it's a strength. You think pushing yourself harder every single day is what building you. But what if it's actually breaking you? What if the habits you're most proud of are the same ones quietly destroying your confidence? You see, that voice in your head that says, do more, be better, you're not there yet. It feels like motivation. It feels like a drive. But underneath all that effort, something darker is growing. You're no longer chasing growth because you love progress. You're chasing it because you can't stand the thought of standing still. And that's not a strength. That's fear, dressed up as ambition. We live in a world that glorifies constant improvement. Everywhere you look, someone is grinding harder, waking up earlier, posting results that make you feel like you're falling behind. You're told that if you're not improving, you're decaying. So you push yourself again and again, hoping one day it'll be enough. But that day never comes, does it? Because no matter how much you achieve, the goalpost moves. You're always just one more milestone away from finally feeling proud. And the cruel part is, the more you chase that enough, the further away it runs. At first, this mindset feels powerful. You feel in control, driven, unstoppable. You tell yourself that discomfort equals growth, that the exhaustion, the doubt, the endless self-critique are all proof that you're evolving. But slowly, something shifts. The same voice that once pushed you forward starts to tear you down. You stop hearing encouragement and start hearing criticism. You begin to believe that rest equals weakness, that slowing down means failure. You lose the ability to appreciate your own effort because your mind only sees what's missing. And here's the dangerous truth. This constant pressure doesn't build confidence, it erodes it. Because real confidence doesn't come from proving yourself every day. It comes from trusting yourself. When you live in a state of never being enough, your brain learns to doubt, not to grow. You start to internalize the belief that your worth is conditional, tied to performance, to perfection, to how well you measure up against others. The more you achieve, the more fragile your confidence becomes, because it's built on the shifting ground of external validation. What's worse is that this illusion feels like self-improvement. You believe you're getting stronger when, in reality, you're building your identity on insecurity. It's a quiet trap, one that masquerades as progress but feeds on self-rejection. And that is what we're going to talk about today, the mindset that looks like growth but is actually killing your confidence. We'll break down how it starts, why it feels so addicting, and what it really takes to rebuild a sense of confidence that doesn't crumble every time you fail. Because you don't need to keep proving your worth, you need to remember it. We're told that growth is everything, that we should always be improving, evolving, pushing further than before. It sounds noble, it feels powerful, but sometimes the pursuit of constant growth becomes a trap, a beautiful prison made of ambition. You start to believe that unless you're advancing, you're failing. Every pause feels like weakness. Every mistake feels like proof that you're not enough. But here's the illusion. Not all growth is healthy. Sometimes what looks like discipline is actually self-punishment. You wake up early, not because you're excited to create, but because you're terrified of being behind. You stay late at work, not because you love what you do, but because you can't bear the thought of being seen as lazy. This isn't progress. It's fear masquerading as focus. In psychology, there is a concept called conditional self-worth. The belief that your value depends on what you achieve. It tricks you into thinking you're improving when in reality, you're chasing approval. And over time, you lose sight of why you even started. The joy fades. The excitement disappears. All that remains is the endless hunger to become better. But better never comes, because the person you're trying to become always moves one step ahead of you. That's the illusion. The belief that self-criticism builds strength, when all it does is quietly dismantle your confidence from the inside out. Confidence isn't about knowing you're perfect. It's about trusting yourself even when you're not. But when you live in a state of constant comparison, your trust begins to die. You stop measuring progress by how you feel and start measuring it by how you look to others. Every achievement becomes a short-lived relief, not genuine pride. You look around and see people doing more, having more, being more, and suddenly your own progress feels small. That's how quiet destruction begins. Comparison rewires your brain to believe that you are always behind. Perfectionism adds the next layer. You begin setting impossible standards, telling yourself that only flawless effort deserves reward. And when you inevitably fall short, the voice inside doesn't forgive you. It attacks. You start believing that mistakes make you unworthy, that rest makes you lazy, that satisfaction makes you soft. It's an endless loop of self-doubt disguised as motivation. Psychologically, this is what's called learned inadequacy. When your efforts never feel enough, your mind learns that you're fundamentally lacking. It becomes your new reality. You might smile in the mirror, but deep down you hear a whisper, "You could have done better." And it's that whisper, not the failure itself, that eats away at your confidence. Think of it this way. Imagine a friend who's always criticizing you, pointing out every flaw, every shortcoming. You'd eventually stop trusting them, right? So why do we think it's different when that voice is our own? Confidence can't survive in an environment of constant self-attack. You can't bully yourself into believing you're enough. This illusion, the one that tells you that harshness equals strength, is the real thief. It steals your joy, your belief, your self-trust. And when trust dies, confidence dies with it. You start living reactively, chasing validation, chasing perfection, chasing a peace you never actually reach. It's not the effort that's killing you. It's the way you think about it. So how do you rebuild confidence after years of measuring your worth by how much you achieve? You start by changing what growth means to you. Real growth isn't about doing more. It's about becoming more aware. It's about replacing judgment with curiosity. When you fail, instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" ask, "What can I learn from this?" That small shift is where self-trust begins. Confidence grows in spaces where compassion exists. Research from Dr. Kristen Neff on self-compassion shows that being kind to yourself doesn't make you weaker, it actually makes you more resilient. Because when you treat yourself with understanding, you create emotional safety. And when you feel safe within yourself, you stop needing perfection to feel valuable. Start small. Celebrate progress, not perfection. When you accomplish something, anything, take a moment to actually feel it. Don't rush to the next goal. Recognize effort, not outcome. You'll begin to rewire your brain to associate growth with pride, not pressure. Second, learn to detach your identity from your performance. You are not your results. You are not your productivity. You are a human being, learning, failing, trying, improving. Your worth is not a scoreboard. It's a constant. When you understand that, confidence becomes unshakable because it's no longer built on fragile achievements, it's built on acceptance. Lastly, practice stillness. Sometimes the most powerful act of self-belief is doing nothing, sitting in silence and trusting that you're enough without needing to prove it. Confidence doesn't come from loud declarations or flawless routines. It comes from quiet certainty, the kind that says, even if I fail, I'm still worthy of love and respect. True growth happens when you no longer chase validation, but live from authenticity. That's when discipline transforms from punishment to power. That's when self-improvement becomes self-respect. And that when you realize what you thought was building you was never required to begin with. You were already enough. You've spent so much of your life trying to prove something, to yourself, to others, maybe to a version of you that never felt enough. You've chased perfection thinking it would bring peace, pushed yourself hard, or believing it would make you stronger. But here's the truth you've been avoiding. Confidence isn't born from control. It's born from trust. And trust doesn't come from doing everything right. It comes from accepting yourself even when you're not. You don't have to keep earning your own respect. You don't have to perform worthiness every day. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to slow down. You're allowed to be proud of yourself, not because you've arrived somewhere extraordinary, but because you never gave up when it was hard to keep going. Growth isn't about becoming someone new. It asks about remembering who you were before you started doubting your own value. So from this moment forward, stop asking, am I doing enough? And start asking, am I being kind to myself? Because the truth is, your potential expands when pressure fades. Your power grows when peace returns. If this message hits something deep inside you, don't let it fade when the video ends. Share it with someone too hard on themselves. Leave a comment with one thing you'll stop criticizing yourself for today. And most importantly, take one quiet moment today to simply breathe and remind yourself, I am already enough. I always have been.